Hello, I'm John, and this is a quick tutorial about player movement in p5.js using the p5play game library. So we're just going to jump right into it. I've got a little basic program up here. Right now it's creating nothing. And what I'm going to do is show some ways to set up like sprite movement. So if you are playing a game, usually the player's controlling some kind of character on the screen. There are a bunch of good ways to set that up. The first thing I need to do is make a sprite to represent the player. So I'm going to go ahead and make a variable. We'll call that sprite player, and then we'll set the player equal to a new sprite. Hit play. Here's our sprite. Wonderful. Now, depending on the kind of game that you're making, you're going to want to set up movement in different ways. And you can sort of decide how you want movement to work in your game. So I'll show you a couple different strategies, and then you can decide which one works best for you. So for the first one's the easiest one, and it's just to have the player sprite follow the mouse. That's pretty easy to set up. So down here in the draw section, remember this code, the computer's going to run these instructions over and over again throughout the game. So these are repeated instructions that the computer's going to follow. And we want the computer to repeatedly have the player move towards the coordinates represented by mouse X and mouse Y. So move towards makes the player move. Mouse X and mouse Y are the coordinates of the mouse on the screen. Before we get into that, I think maybe it's useful to show you what this would look like without the mouse coordinates. So I'm going to have the sprite start at 0, 0, which is the top left corner, and then I'm going to have the sprite move toward 300, 300, which is the middle of the screen. So here's what that looks like. So it just does that, but then it stays there because these numbers aren't changing. The computer has already moved the player towards those. So instead, I want to use mouse X and mouse Y. So now those coordinates are being updated, and there we go. We have a little sprite moving around. That's great. Love that. If I wanted this to be a spaceship game, I could set the image to like a rocket ship. There we go. Maybe this one's better. There we go. That's great. Okay, yeah. So that's going to be rocket ship. Nice. Simple player movement. No problem. Okay. That's the easiest one. But some games don't work this way. Some games, the character needs to be moved around by pressing the mouse keys, or not the mouse keys, sorry, the keyboard keys, like left, right, up, down, or WASD. And to do that is a slightly different setup. So I'll kind of sneak up on that process the same way I showed you the mouse movement. So let's imagine for a moment that we have the player, and we're going to move toward. Let's set the player up in the middle of the screen, and so starting at 300, 300. Let's have the player move toward 400, 300. So we're gonna get that same sort of like sideways movement, right? Now watch what happens if I do that. So this expression, player x plus 1, that represents the coordinate right next to the player. And so now what the player is going to do is it's going to move toward the coordinate right next to them every frame. Just barely, it's moving ever so slightly. Now, if we wanted to make this move faster, we can increase that number. Move it a little faster. All right, that's nice. We like that. Pretty good. There's also a move to function, which sort of like does a similar thing. I think move to actually works a little bit better here. It's a little smoother. Great. So that's what we have. Now, obviously, this is not like controlled movement. This is just going to keep going off the screen no matter what. We really only want the computer to do this instruction if the user's pressing a key. that is that's the thing. That's what we're trying to implement here. So in order to make that happen, we need to actually wrap this statement in an if statement. We need to wrap this line in an if statement. So set up if. And what the if statement allows the computer to do is only do these instructions if a condition that we provide in here is true. So now we have to write a condition. So there are a bunch of different ways to set this up in p5play. Let's do kb dot. I think that will work. Let's see. Yeah. So this statement right here, kb.pressing left, is true when the player is pressing the left key, and is false when the player is not pressing a key or pressing a different key. So if I go over here and I do right, left, up, down, nothing. But if I press left, there we go. Pretty good. Now, this is more similar to movement in like a breakout game. For example, the kind of game where you have like a bar at the bottom, you're trying to bounce a ball to hit things. If we set up our player so that we're closer to the bottom of the screen, maybe like 550, and we'll just set that to player Y. And now we make our sprite look more like a bar. So maybe we'll make 75 wide and then 20 tall. Yeah, there we go. Now if I press left, we move that way. Now I don't have any code for pressing right, and honestly, also this feels a little backwards. I'm pressing left, but the sprite is moving right. So there's some adjustments I have to make here, but I'm gonna kind of leave that to you to set up. Those are the basics of player movement. So think about your game, think about what you need to accomplish, and see if you can use some of the strategies I've demonstrated here to set yourself up. This is a super short program. Should be pretty simple to extend what I have here. You can copy and paste this section if you're trying to add more keys, for example. I'll show you how to do right. So I'm going to do that. Now I'm going to do right, and then I have to change what happens when the player presses the right key. Right now, if I press right, it goes right, and if I press left, it goes left. Hold on, let me move my head. You can't see it. Can't see it anymore. There we go. Perfect. If I press right, it goes right. If I press left, it also goes right. So those are things that I need to fix. But I'll leave that to you, dear viewer. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below or what have you. Good luck and happy coding.